What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Jupiter's Legacy review, recap, breakdown and ending explained. There will of course be spoilers for this show, as well as some light comic book spoilers as well. I was very excited for this show as it is an adaptation of Mark Millar's comic of the same name and part of the Millarworld Netflix deal, which I'm hoping will be absolutely massive. The comic is vastly different to the show, but the main way is simply in the pace. This is because there are about 5 issues per volume in the comic, and there's 2 sort of different chapters, such as Jupiter's Legacy and then Jupiter's Circle. And well, in the comic we do jump between plot points and major plot points very heavily, whereas here there is a lot more time to breathe and explore the incredibly complex rights and wrongs of old school 30s style superheroism being applied to a modern 2021 world. While this deconstruction of the superhero myth has been done so many times in the past, and to be honest, the main thing that came to mind when I was watching this was the comic Kingdom Come, especially with The Watchmen, which this comic and show draws heavily from, and the iconic Killing Joke, and like I said, DC's Kingdom Come. Here the adaptation takes these ideas and runs with them superbly, and I would argue that they are translated better on the screen here. Josh Duhamel as the Utopian, our Superman, the iconic and ideological leader, is a total joy to watch. A man at a time, more than Captain America, as his code of ethics is being ignored by the younger heroes, just not wanting to die against an ever-escalating threat. What happens when the ideals of the past, the Americana, which itself was at the time pure fantasy, comes face to face with the cold hard realities of a brutal endgame of capitalism? One could argue that the escalating threats were only there as a response to the Union of Justice reality defying powers, but the Union of Justice was created after the founding members went to what is only known as the Island in the late 1920s. Sheldon and Walt grew up working at their father's steel mill, except Sheldon was the golden child who had the ideas and lofty ambitions, whereas Walt played second fiddle to him, being the realist and party pooper, for lack of a better term. Sheldon looked up to his father as a great American titan of industry, creating the American dream for many, but this would all change. Their father does sadly commit suicide after the stock market crash of 1929, and Sheldon, in his grief, soon learns the truth of the proposed expansion for their steel mill and why they lost it all. Their father staked the pension fund on, well, the stock market, but that crumbled and it was all gone. However, Sheldon is plagued by visions of his father. However, slowly but surely, he starts to unravel a mystery presented to him by visions of an island and why there are certain people at a table. While his family see him as crazy, his friend George, who did also lose everything, starts to help him, and eventually they unite every person in his vision and head to the island after coercing a boat captain to take them. However, it is here, on this strange land-shifting island, we learn why each of these people was selected. Each one has lost someone close to them and are being tested, as we see bodies of previous explorers, and they must move on past their petty squabbles to get their rewards, which are superpowers. Now, in the comic, it is presumed that they were given these powers by aliens trying to actually uplift people. It is here the code is born, a code of not killing and general ethics they must abide by as they are supremely powerful. It is the code that led them to their power beyond measure, but is also their possible downfall. Rightly or wrongly, it does not seem to be matching up to 2021. It has been eroding before the show even starts, but what is the island? Now, while it was never explicitly explained, Chloe and Hutch's child in the comic believe it to be an alien race intent on uplifting the human race for leaving Earth. Now, fast forward to modern day, and as usual, the crime is up and people are struggling. But as Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire. This stuff is as old as time. We have the utopian Sheldon spend most of the season trying to get a grip on his superhero empire he has built and steer these younglings the right way. He's hard on his son Brandon, aka Paragon, who he hopes one day will take over his mantle, and his family is somewhat of a mirror image of his past, with Chloe being the golden child in the father's eyes who can do no wrong despite being an absolute awful person, while poor old Brandon stays and works and tries to live up to the code. However, someone has managed to clone Blackstar, an immensely powerful supervillain, as the Union are charged with fighting him along with some of the less powerful members. This is where the code comes into question, as Brandon decides to kill Blackstar before he kills his parents, and well, he goes against his father, much to the chagrin of him, but the public actually start to support this, and Brandon questions whether he should follow the code, because, well, if he did, it would have meant that his parents died, and his friends would have also died in vain. Now, that's a very curious question. All the while, Hutch, the son of the Fox, aka George, who we learn had actually turned on our people here, our Union of Justice, many years ago. But George is actually a bit of a different one in the comic. He had the similar ideals to Walt, except those two absolutely hate each other. Now, Hutch actually has the Blue Bolt's baton that allows him to travel anywhere. This was a character which was humongously fleshed out in the sequel Jupiter's Circle, and I expect in season 2 we will see more of Richard Conrad. Now, Hutch has turned to a life of crime, and in a deal gone wrong, he actually crashes into Chloe and they start to begin a relationship. Very much a Romeo and Juliet story here. He is trying to find his father even though he denies it. It's what the thing he finds in the safety deposit box that Chloe helps him get that will help him allow to find the location of the Flying Fox himself. However, Sheldon is having an existential crisis, and I loved it that the only man who can speak to him and cut through is a genius supervillain in prison. He and the Union are trying to work out why George would clone Blackstar to attack them after all this time. However, it was all a ruse. Now, Walt actually orchestrated this all to split Sheldon from his father, but did not expect his daughter to be captured. I was very disappointed here that she was killed off so soon, as she really did have some stunning moments in the comics. The comic goes a mile a millisecond, whereas here it's a slower burn in comparison, but I think it's paced better here. While I did enjoy the comic somewhat, I do think that the show is one of the rare examples where the adaptation is actually better. Walt feels the government are to blame for absolutely everything and feels constrained by the code and thinks that they can do so much more if they were involved in making policy. As he said, taking down robbers can only take you so far when you're not fixing the systemic problems there. That's a very apt kind of storyline for what's going on in the world right now. While in the comics, the jump from Walt whispering in Brandon's ear to the takeover of America by the Union and a police state was incredibly jarring, here I do think it is a lot more enjoyable. And in season 2, I do hope that we have a blend of history. Now, while the first comic, Jupiter's Legacy, was all about the deconstruction of the Union of Justice and the utopian and everything like that, well, Jupiter's Legacy showed the original Union in the 30s, and we did get a kind of insight into that a little bit, and I'm hoping that we see how George actually came to be the villain of the piece. so to speak. Now, I hope in Season 2 we get a longer play and fight between the two brothers, leading into Volume 2, where we see Chloe and Hutch lead the resistance. But it's a very exciting show, and I really, really enjoyed it. I do think Netflix, when they get it right, like this and Umbrella Academy. But that is it for this video. Please do drop a like down below. Please do subscribe with notifications on if you want more from us, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.